Alex?
Okay, Council, I think the other two must be on the way. I think, Bruce, everybody's coming tonight? Okay. We'll go ahead and get started, call to order for our study session. The first item on the agenda is the December 2015 flood event update. We weren't expecting to spend the week between Christmas and New Year like we spent it. And particularly a lot that are here spent many hours. I'm going to comment about that as after we get a report and an update. But so to speak, a lot of water's gone under the bridge in the last week. And I would like Stan and Steve or either chief or everybody to come give us the latest update and some perspective.
Steve's gonna.
Steve, you're gonna give us the first shot?
Slideshow, and I'll narrate what we're looking at.
Okay.
It's a real pleasure to be up here and report on the good things in Cape Girardeau. There's been a lot of good things done, a lot of hard work by individuals, past councils, a lot of hard work in the past and now. Teamwork during this event was the best I ever seen it. I've been here 38 years. EOC, the different departments, the different divisions, the industries, Boozy, it's pretty amazing. And as we roll through here, basically what this is just showing here we go, of where we're at. Some of you may remember South Sprague. We boated in from 93, 95, and then this road was raised. Was a non-event. If it hadn't been for the sinkholes, Boozy could have went right straight down the road. Here's some of the work. This is the closure of the south gate. Nobody ever really expected to see this very often. This is the sewer stormwater crew working on this. We have guys working at the pump stations, working raising the levee at the transfer station, making the rounds on the levee. Numerous things going on at the same time. Again, on the south gate. These guys worked at the transfer station. They started on New Year's Eve, worked all the way through the night, all through the next day, next night, and finished up the next day to raise the levee up. So when they got to, they're calling for December 18th, we go back, and we was looking at a small flood event. We was talking about letting people off for Christmas. And then we got the rain. And rain and rain and more rain. And then, when you're talking about 45 feet, that's one thing. When you hit 48, that's a different game. 48 and a half's more. And when they said 50, that meant all the transfer station had to be raised up and other things go into place then. This is our main Meriweather pump station. Our guys sitting in the back here are trained to run these pump stations and do everything else we talked about. These pump stations are what protects the city from the rainfall. Anything falls got to be pumped out. And of course, you got the levee wall. Many of you were here last week. We had the general from Corps Engineers, 2 colonels in here. This is probably the most, I'd say, horsepower has been in Cape in a long time. We need about $2.6 million to finish this out. I said this helped us.
Yeah.
And again, this is where the guys are working. I'll let Stan talk at the end here, and I'm sure he'll have something to say. What have we done to change things? And this is when I was talking to ABC and CBS and floating around Red Star, they're wanting all the bad stuff. I keep giving them numbers and numbers and numbers about the good stuff. But where's all the damage at? I said, through 93, 95, all the way up, I said, I've worked in flood events from 1977. I said, it's not even the same game. Well, they don't really want to hear that, but they did. What have we done? Top left is our wastewater treatment plant, the old one. Water all the way around it. Be about 30-some inches down from the top at the crest. And it's sitting there. It's not flooded. The levees are working. But in a 1993-95 flood, that's closed up. All raw sewage going to the river. The bottom right is our new treatment facility. Treated everything that come in. Never bypassed anything. Putting out exceptional effluent. Huge difference. Transfer station. If it had got 4 more months, we got the one that we just raised the levee on, the old one. 4 more months. The bottom right is the new transfer station in front of our wastewater treatment plant. We'll be out of that floodplain too. Cooperation. Molly's up there with folks from Red Star. Stan's talking to Red Cross. Bottom was Boosie's levee and Bootsy, and it's an incredible amount of time we work with them folks. Steve Lewis and I have talked numerous times. Supplying them pumps, them keeping the road open for us, the transfer station, a lot of teamwork there. Where the road was kept open. The transfer station, we limited Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to our trash and another company because of there's so much traffic on the road and the heavy equipment working. But it's all open. EOC, it was really a pleasure to work with everybody in there. The teamwork is limited, EOC, orange level. And, you know, I remember talking to the chief over, the police chief, and somebody was on the flood wall. Well, I was able to look at him and say, there's somebody we hear on the steps down there. Went to a camera, was able to look at the flood wall. They're done gone, but it happened that quick. Technology now is so much different. With the cell phones and the cooperation, and you know, if you needed something, you called somebody. You didn't have old bag phones like years ago, you know, and with web EOC needing stuff, it was quick. Armory, the governor come in for a round table. You know, we're getting a lot of support, you know, FEMA, I'm sure FEMA, the agencies, the support the different agencies is in here. It's a great time that we can get that kind of support. Cape Central, I believe it's a football team, sandbagging up at Red Star. The bottom is the Red Star lot. Red Star Church let us use their lot. We hauled over 20,000 sandbags we gave away. Not filled, but empty sandbags. This is one that just kind of shows a little bit of everything. You You know, top left, we got people meeting, the bottom left, COC, the middle is cleaning up the bridge up here over Sloan Creek today and opening the road back up. And there's some aerials. This is the casino from the air yesterday. You can see Red Star is north of the casino in that area that's flooded there. It really shows what the flood wall does. Looking down on the bridge. You can see to the left, dry dock. Water plant. Water plant years ago, we was taking in water from the river. Kevin and them in '93, I got pictures where they were standing with chest waders in the pump station. And, you know, they're working on that. We got rid of the river intakes, where we got wells down in the well field. Talking with Kevin, this was almost a non-event. I mean, we went from major problems to treating water, and I asked him today, did you even have many call-outs? He said, no. I said, well, that's great. That's what it should be. I took this photo a little south of the casino the other day. I like the bridge in the background, and this is the outside of the seawall, so you can really kind of shows what's there. And that one. Another thing that we've done in Cape, and I started to kind of put it in the beginning, but I thought, well, I'll put it at the end. You know, the town plaza, Walker Branch, Cape LaCroix. Years ago, I was here when the whole town plaza flooded. We don't have that anymore. You know, we have to worry about that right before this started with all the rain. With that basin up there, with Walker Branch Channel, Cape LaCroix Channel, I don't want to say it's non-event, but compared to what it was years ago, it's a world of difference. And it's paid. One reason I say this, you know, people ask me, has it paid for itself? Has the renovation at the pump station paid for itself?
Many times.
You know, treatment plant and all this. Well, this is time to celebrate some of the things, to me, that we've done to eliminate a lot of problems. Web EOC, you know, it worked amazingly well. Nicolette and Gail and several people, Jessica getting on there, working with Web EOC. Amber needed life jackets. Just got on there and found, 50 life jackets? Pretty quick, or fire. Anyway, you know, that it works very well. Couple last shots. Any questions?
Gonna have some comments, but who's gonna back that up? Any other, Stan, any comments? I believe it.
I would just commend decades of diligent work by lots of people, leadership from various city councils, the Corps of Engineers, the levee districts, Public Works, contractors that have been hired by those agencies to bring all of the flood wall levee system up from an idea to a physical structure that has been maintained well and operated well. I would commend everyone for a job well done, and an event like this validates the need for all of that work. It's millions and millions of dollars and lots of hours, and as Steve pointed out, sometimes people question, is there really a need for all of this? In an event like we are still in, we're past the crest, thank goodness, but we're still above major flood stage level, and all of that work is validated in an event like this. Similarly, the rains over Christmas, the improvements for the drainage system around the city. We didn't have flooding problems even in those rains over Christmas weekend. And again, commend a lot of people for a lot of work to bring that to pass. I would also celebrate that we've got a tremendous workforce that's been on duty for, well, since mid-December in this event, and they have risen to the occasion again and again, meeting challenges, and we just thank the Lord that we've been able to do what we needed to do to meet them. But I would commend these guys and others that weren't able to be here tonight, that they've done a tremendous job, and we'll keep doing that for another week or two till we get down below flood stage and then get back to our normal day-to-day activities, which we look forward to. But thank you, fellas, for a job well done. Thank you.
Either chief, any comments? Rick?
With what Steve and Stan said.
Okay, same. I ask that Stan be here tonight, and Steve for sure, and bring some people along. I want to make a few comments. It's been with a great deal of pride that I been on many conference calls and calls from state, national media, et cetera, and what a great deal of pride I was able to communicate that we're fine here. We got a few little issues on the north and the south, but our infrastructure, dedicated from the late 50s, early 60s, mid 80s, up to and including just recently our new, as it's been stated, won't belabor the fact, but the wastewater treatment plant, the wells and the water. There were upstream cities that lost water to their city, upstream cities that lost, Valley Park, I think, that lost their wastewater treatment plant. The foresight and the vision of councils, staffs, and our citizens, really. Our citizens let us do our wastewater treatment plant. If our citizens wouldn't have let us do that, we wouldn't have a new wastewater treatment plant today. As recently this afternoon on a conference call with the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative, up and down the river with media, and some of the cities and the trouble they're having and have had, particularly upstream, not as much downstream, but particularly upstream. They just didn't have the wherewithal and the investment and the people to handle what we were able to handle in our size city. And want to emphasize the people part of it. And Stan, you and Steve have done that, but heartfelt from myself, from the rest of the staff, from all of our citizens and council. You put in a lot of hours and a lot of dedicated hours, and a lot of them are still on the firing line right now. That's why they're not here. And they'll continue to be as we work through the rest of this process. But my personal thanks. It was a real pleasure to be able to report to the media on those things. And I received also from state at the governor's briefing, from Senator Roy Blunt, from the Army Corps, Major General, the Colonel that I was with, I think, 4 times last week on different days. Their comments that we are the best that they've seen. And it makes you proud. Makes you proud. So again, thanks, and glad you could come, and we'll keep plugging away, and more to do, and we'll have more mitigation. We were talking about, we've got a grant that has been already approved and funded out of Washington on a pre-mitigation grant program that'll help us plan for the next one. So that's going to be on a grant program, so we'll be working ahead, planning for the next one. We already got some ideas there, that things that would fit there. And we've got some cleanup to do. We're going to have a lot of debris. The governor said we're going to have a lot of debris, and I think we already got a lot of debris. Seeing that bridge there Sunday, as the water was just getting off of it, and gosh. And A lot of it is coming down the river, and it gives us a good opportunity, to me, to really give Loretta, the river and those tributaries and those back areas of water a really good thorough cleaning as we move ahead. So anyway, thanks for all your efforts, and congratulations on the follow-through, and all of the leadership team, the EOC and staff for all of your efforts as you've been through this process that we didn't think on December 20th we were even gonna face. But boy, just quickly we can bring that together and get the job done. So thank you. Council, any other words?
Harry, I believe I have a constituent who is here.
Okay?
Hi, my name is Kim Conway, and I live in Red Star. If you look at the map, you'll see the Quonset hut. I live in a little house that you can just barely see when you look at that aerial of my house. I kind of sit by myself. Well, I had, to prepare for this flood, and I kept raising the flood level, and we didn't know how high the water was going to get. I had a lot of people help, a lot of private people that I had no idea who they were. And that's one thing that went on back on Red Star is private citizens came and helped, people you didn't even know. I was outside, I think it was the first, and I'm just looking, thinking, I had a lot of work done, but man, there was a lot of work to do. And I'm wondering what I'm gonna do. So these two guys walk up to me out of nowhere, and one guy was named Jay from Shiloh Reynolds, I think, and the other one was Matt from Strickland Lawn. And Jay said, I think you need some help. And I said, yeah. And he said, I have some friends, and he said, we work together, and we're gonna come back and help you. So here in a little, and I had no idea if he was gonna come back. I didn't know who he was. So I'm thinking, well, if this guy comes back, it's gonna be wonderful, He comes back with 8 people. 8 people he brings to my house. And then here comes a little skid steer. And Joe was on the skid steer. And talk about moving some sandbags. We moved some sandbags. And we did it fast. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, to them and everybody that helped back there, and to all the city employees for all the work that they've done.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Great testimonial.
Okay, thank you so much.
Did you get water in you?
No, I did not get water, and I'm so thankful and
Good,
blessed that I
good.
didn't. I mean, it got right up to my sandbags, but I'm
Very
in good
good.
shape.
Very good, very good. Great testimony. Thanks for taking the time to come.
Thank you.
Council, any other comments?
Well, I have a comment. I've been involved just about at the same time Steve has, and remember all of these things. But I've been reading and experiencing too, and we're so proud of what has been done in Cape Girardeau to protect our city. But I think it's about time that the failed river policies of the states and the Corps of Engineers get up to date with all of their flood maps, because this major 3 days of rain around St. Louis and central part of Missouri should not have created a 500-year flood. And this has been predicted months ago. And the state has allowed more levees and more levees and more levees to be built for play fields and shopping malls, and the water has to go somewhere. So it's about time that the leaders, the Corps, the legislators, the states get together. Otherwise, this is going to get worse every time. So thank goodness we are where we are, but we don't want to get the sewage from St. Louis to clean up our water, but that's what's happening. I mean, we started cleaning ours up, 25 years ago, but now we have to deal with what the other failed policies do to us. So I hope that the people that are concerned and can do something will be vigilant and protect other areas, just like Cape Girardeau has protected their own.
Okay, any other council? Okay, anyone else besides Ms. Conway that is in the audience to appear before the council on any item that is not on the agenda? Any item not on the agenda? Okay,
Mayor, I'd like to ask Stacy a question. He died sleeping here, hadn't had sleep probably about 5 hours over the last 5 days. Tell me, for the rest of everybody else here, when it's raining hard downtown and one of those pump stations goes down, used to, the electricity went off and we didn't have any backup power. How long till it floods to the point where used to, when the switches were on the floor, it'd basically electrocute you? How long did a person have?
In the old system, if it was raining hard, you had probably 3 or 4 minutes before.
Yeah.
But if it's raining hard and the power goes off, it blows all the plates off the floor.
Yeah.
And the air comes through this whistle that comes through the floor, and you have minutes. And if you're not out of the station when it goes switch gear, it was 400 heavy volts on the floor. So if you were in the water outside, it would still be.
So I just want to make sure people understand that's what these folks have been putting up with for years. It's a little better now because we raised it up and we got backup power.
got generators, yeah.
But for years, decades, those people stood guard over our city, minutes away from death, really. And they never want any attention. Every one of them's embarrassed that we have them here. But they came because we kind of insisted on it. But I just think people need to understand that that's a quality of people that work for us and do it quietly. They call it invisible force. They don't like to be seen, but that's what's happening, and that's what's happened for decades here. Fortunately, we made it some better, but it's still a tremendously stressful job. You got maybe 15 minutes to get the backup power on, and or water's inside of Hudson's. You know, that's probably, I think, the 15 minutes is how quickly you have to react now. And once you're there, then you're in deep trouble. So just want to make sure that people understand the level of stress that's in there. And they work 12-hour shifts when it starts until it's finished. And I can't remember, 2011, how many days was it in a row? Was it 2011?
97, huh?
97 days in a row. And the pumps run the entire time, never shut off. Incredible what they did. Thank you.
We were, Scott, we were talking about that the day we were down there with the Major General and the Colonel, and that question kind of came up, and it might have been Stacy or somebody, said, what do you do? And they said, run faster than you've ever run before. Was that you, Stacy? Somebody told me, I said, what do? You run faster than you've ever run before. Yep, something.
Steve or Stan mentioned the 2.6 million. I wonder if you could talk just really what that would entail, what would that do to help improve the infrastructure?
Stan, come up and talk about that, because people don't quite understand what's left there. We've got 2 projects left to finish that. One's funded. It'll happen next summer. Is that right, Molly? That'll happen next summer. That's the moving the track and the the railroad tracks and the tow drain. This one is needed, and it's unfunded. And this is what we kind of lobbying for last week and over the weekend, and we'll continue to lobby for. But yeah, I think that'd be good. Thanks, Wayne. That'd be good to hear.
The remaining project that those funds would go to, at the Meriweather pump station, the pump stations pump out into a box culvert that goes out into the river, basically. When the pumps aren't in operation and all the gates are open, the water just flows by gravity out through this structure. When the gates are closed and we're activated the pumps, we pump out through that structure. It goes out into the river a certain distance now. If you've been down the flood wall and the river walk, the area that's got the guardrail down on the southern end, that's basically a huge retaining wall. And there's some concern on the Corps of Engineers part you can't see under there because of the water, but they're concerned that over the years, there's been scour that retaining wall might try to lean out into the river, which could damage that discharge structure. They have reinforced most of that area with more riprap to reinforce that bank. To finish that project, they need to extend that discharge box out so that they can add the riprap over that last section. So that's the work that remains is complete the design and then the construction for the new discharge box extension and then the riprap wall to go with it. And the Corps officials tell us that they need about 2.6 million in additional funding above what we've already got in hand, which would bring us to something on the order of 20.2 million over the last 10 years that's been invested by them into our flood wall system. So we're hoping we can get that last part done and be ready to stand for the next 50 years with a very strong, stable flood protection system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. That's good comments. Before we go to the agenda, we'll comment, Alex, welcome to Cape Girardeau. Pretty exciting first couple of weeks you've been here. Okay, let's go to the agenda, Scott.
We did have, if we got a few minutes, we did have, Eric checked on the condemnation process
Okay, fine.
and found a couple of, I guess got a couple of pretty good comments back. You had some that were just kind of along the lines of what we had said, but.
Thanks for coming,
wanted him
guys.
to report on that if he could, if you don't mind.
The question, as you all recall, was pretty much about barricading and securing properties that were in the condemnation process. I received a couple of comments from a couple of major cities in the state, and both of them said that they did go ahead and barricade those properties, but they did it after there had been a hearing declaring the property to be a dangerous building. And in effect, giving the property owner a due amount of time to put that kind of barricade up themselves, and then afterwards, those cities decided they would go ahead and barricade those properties themselves. One of them said that they had never been sued, but were crossing their fingers. The other one was currently in the midst of a lawsuit about it. So it does kind of go both ways.
And then Molly, I don't know if your folks were able to come up with any of their listserv, any of the same type of things or others?
Yes, Mayor, Council, Anna, I know had sent a listserv request to the Mayboy Association, which is the Building Officials Association, asking how their cities handled it. I believe she's received a few responses back, more specifically about how they do the work, if they do it at all. A lot of them recommended contracting that work out as opposed to having city staff do the work. And so last time I checked with her, those were the type of responses that she was receiving, and she will work to compile that information and bring it back to the council in a more formal format.
Okay.
If I could ask a question, Eric, do you know if they bill the property owners for the work they take to protect the site? I mean, is that something it seems like we would do it with other things. If we clean up graffiti, we bill them for it.
Yes, the statute specifically authorizes that a city can issue a special assessment to recover the costs of securing the property. However, the statute does not say that the city has the right to secure the property, but they can recover the costs of securing the property. It's an interesting kind of omission, which is part of the reason the city has been in the situation it has for as long as it has with that question.
Okay.
So I wanted you to know that and make sure, we may, we'll keep you in the loop, but it does seem to make sense. If we were going to do it, that's, the timing of right after the hearing seems like a good time to do it. The owner has good opportunity. We're at the point then when we can tax bill, and so that kind of makes the universe a little smaller, and seems to make sense maybe to do it then. And so we'll find out what Anna's recommendations are as far as using a contractor to do it and how that process might look. So that's kind of what we're looking at this point in time. I'm sorry, so we'll go through the agenda. We do have one public hearing tonight. It'll be a public hearing about rezoning of 2930 Hawthorne from R1 to a planned development district. I believe Mr. McClanahan talked a little bit about this last time, and so we plan on having that public hearing this evening.
Any comments from council on that item?
I jumped over communications and reports for the second time in a row. Are there?
Saw something, you don't want us to speak? Is that-
Sounds like it, doesn't it? No. What are the items you'd like to share tonight?
I'm going to do a recap of just what we went through myself on the events of the last week. That's the only other thing I have. Council? Everybody's supposed to have a quiet week, right?
All right.
Okay.
Our consent agenda tonight is the second and third reading of the establishing stop signs on Kingsway. This is number 3. Number 4 is the second and third reading of the demolition of the special tax bill for the special tax due on Good Hope. Number 5 is the record plat for American Landmark. That's the hotel and restaurant there that's getting made into two plats. Number 6 is the temporary construction easement, permanent trails for Bloomfield Road, accepting those. Number 7 is the second, third of the downtown tax increment financing district. Note, this is just the general second and third reading. Last time we did the first reading of, I believe it was 5 different areas. And those we will not do until we actually have a proposed project, because when you actually do that, then the clock starts ticking on the time limit that we have for each one. So this is just the general to go ahead and complete that, but that does put it in place afterwards.
We don't have a time limit between first and second, I mean, so that could go on.
Our charter does not contain any such time limit, but for the purpose of this statute, there is effectively a 10-year time limit, yeah.
It's not like 6 months where.
No,
we have plenty of time. Okay.
no.
Yeah, if we would exceed the 10 months, then we would just
10 years.
do it, or 10 years, we would do it for, just have to start all over, or, go back and do the first reading again. Number 8 is the second and third reading of the speed limit on Broadway. And number 9 is the accepting of the sanitary sewer on Marie Street. You might recall that we did that work a few months ago. And then number 10 is the improvements and the payment for the speed slides out at Cape Splash. So that completes that. Do you have any of these items you'd like to note your abstention on or remove from the consent agenda for further discussion?
Scott, I have a question just about
Sure.
Number 9. How did that all work out? Did the city share the cost of, I mean, that was an unusual case where all that wasn't connected up.
It was, we ended up doing some shared work but they also got tax billed and some of them got it over a longer period of time. I'll let Molly
Right.
cover.
We haven't brought the tax bills forward yet, but those will be forthcoming. The city agreed to do the work. We replaced the sewer line. If you'll recall, that was a private 6-inch clay sewer line in Marie Street that there was a lot of defects and issues with. The city went in and replaced that with the pipe that meets our current standards and did all of the work. And then the affected homeowners will either be tax billed or will make arrangements through their monthly utility bill to reimburse us for their cost. You may also remember that we agreed to limit their maximum cost to $3,300 apiece.
So are they all connected onto the line?
Yes, everyone's connected and everything is going where it should be now, so it's a much better situation now.
What's the maximum time in this circumstance that a homeowner could request to pay the $3,300 back?
The 2 options was either a 5-year or a 10-year option. Mhm.
And there's no interest or fees during that? Okay.
Very unusual, 100-year-old.
Yes.
And all of a sudden,
Let's have no more of those.
here it goes.
Let's not.
But it effectively handled through staff and communication, proper communication, and it was well received, and for the most part, well received, and it's done. So that's good.
Any items you'd like to remove? Seeing none, we did go ahead and remove the two items having to do with setting the election, the second and third readings of each of those items. The first one is for the setting of the licensing fee, the second and third reading of that, and then the number 12 is the second and third of the use tax for general revenue purposes. During the last time, many had asked about if we had some proposals, and in our discussions, I've prepared a proposal, I guess, for the use. We have, looking at it, we believe the income from both of these, if both of these pass, the income would be, we're willing to count on is $1.25 million annually. But a use tax is a little different. You don't necessarily want to count on it. I mean, 1 1/4 of that is a permanent part of the tax, but 1.5 cents of the 2.75 is subject to future sunsets. So if they don't, so you can't count on them perpetually. And so we feel comfortable at funding to the $1.25 million basis in order to discuss with voters what we believe are some of the initiatives that we would have. We did then identified 7 areas. First one is to keep 3 grant-funded police officers already on duty, and as that grant runs out, we will need to fund those, so we would use a portion of it for that. We have the restaurant tax funds that we're going to do the police station. By agreement, those funds will no longer be used for that, and it will free up that money, and then we'll talk about that a little later. But we had to replace that, so that's $333,000 that we would use for that. Then we have 7 additional police officers. We discussed at the public safety study session that we had. As per the council direction, that's $385,000 for that. The fire training officer, this is an officer who would take care of all the training within fire and move them forward with that and free up some that are doing that at this time. Number 5 is a safety coordinator. We've seen a little uptick in our risk management claims, and we believe a safety coordinator will help us combat that growth and hopefully turn it the other way for a while. Number 6 is a new idea that we're looking at for a public mental health professional to work through our policing operations, and then number 7 is the last one is the business support, eliminating a part of the businesses that currently get the gross receipts tax, and so it takes it up to $1 million. It says those that are doing over $1 million would continue to have an annual gross receipts. They would continue to have the gross receipts tax, but those less than $1 million, we're trying to hit the small business owners. I know $1 million sounds like a lot of money, but really in a lot of products, that's not a lot of money. That's not necessarily a lot of product. So we chose $1 million in annual gross receipts, and in order to replace that tax break, we would take them back to a 40-degree flat charge. That's about $135,000 per year. So we put them in what we believe is in priority order. But of course, this is a city manager and staff recommendation, and awaits your all's direction. I will talk a little bit about the restaurant tax funds that would be freed up. We have looked at taking and using that to improve and doing some badly needed maintenance out there, Shawnee Fields, if you've been out there and saw the parking lots and the drainage and the fence is getting old and a lot of things. We bring a lot of people in with those fields, into our community, and we need to really keep them competitive, in our region, and we believe we need to do that. And so we would take those dollars freed up and use them for that. So that's, our, proposal for, your consideration.
I've got a comment on the out-of-state vehicles, and then a comment on one of the plans, and then a question on the gross receipts tax. So, number one, on the out-of-state vehicles, one point for that is really protecting our local businesses.
Yes.
I don't think that really comes out in those bullet points.
Right. Okay.
You know, we really need to support our local businesses. If we don't get this, their business is at risk. Not only their volume, but could affect jobs
Yes.
within our community. So I think another bullet point there might be good.
I think that is bullet point 4 though, Harry, isn't it? It says eliminates tax incentives to buy vehicles out of state and allocate road.
Yeah, it does, but it really doesn't really directly say we're doing it to support our local businesses and to help to save jobs within our communities.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think one more bullet point there would be good.
Yeah, and this is just more of the facts. When we put together a communication piece,
Yeah.
we'll bring that back to you, and it'll be a PowerPoint, and get your input on all of that prior to sharing that with civic clubs and things like that.
And then I know we've added jailers, and we've added the grant officers, and now with the 7. Personally, I would hope those are added on an organized basis, and not just hire 7 immediately, so that we really know as we move on where we're going and where it is. That's the plan. It would seem to me it'd be, pardon?
And the 2 additional officers in this year's budget, so you're right.
Right.
And then that makes the case we've already done.
Yeah,
made
we've already
progress,
done
and-
some major things. We're saying 7, that's the plan. Is 6 right, or is maybe 8 right, or 9 right, or 5 right? At this point in time, until we get moving down the line, my point is, we might not know that move ahead on a systematic, organized basis. Not putting it off for years and years, and if we need them faster rather than slower, fine, but just a comment there.
That would be just up to, essentially.
Right.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
Maybe message that.
yeah.
And I'd like to.
And it's still a part of the plan, pardon?
I'd like to second that, Harry. That was something that, from my opinion, I didn't know if I personally agreed with us saying the prioritized list in this order, and I didn't know how the rest of the council felt. Maybe it will be 7. Are we going to eliminate the gross receipts tax before we get 7 hired? Are we going to hire the mental health professional if the police department says they need it? They say they need it now. I would like the police chief, or it go back to council, but perhaps the police chief can tell us right now, I really need that guy before I need any of these 7 people. Or Rick may tell us that he needs the fire training officer tomorrow. So I don't know that I personally was compelled to agree that we've hired how many police officers and jailers already. We need to keep that above some of these other
Okay.
issues.
Yeah.
Isn't really the bigger question, does this list really need to be prioritized? Some of those things will, is that, I think what your point was is that if you felt like something was left off, that you gave it in terms of a ranking order, Scott, for us, but is that necessarily an implementation order?
Yeah,
Prioritization carry over
I-
to implementation?
I put the prioritization primarily to make sure that you're aware that you know, the first two is money that, once we, you know, that we really, those two are very high
Already committed,
priority.
yeah.
And then the other thing about prioritizing is, for instance, if the use tax passed but the licensing fee doesn't, then you get about $1 million. So then that would mean that your bottom 2.5, a $250,000 would fall off. So does that make sense? But the implementation of this thing still needs some work, no question about it. We're really trying to get, is this what the universe looks like? We can certainly continue to have conversations about how to prioritize this, or even if to prioritize it. But if we can get our hands around if this is what the universe looks like, I think we've made, you know, we've moved ourselves a lot further. The other thing that we just found out this last week was that we won't actually start collecting it until October, because of the way the use tax statute is. You have to wait a quarter or two or something like that. I can't remember, but John was telling me that, we won't even start getting the money till October. Of course, if we're paying the businesses will pay theirs for a year, so it would naturally kick in, you'd think, then the next January before that would kick in.
Scott, the reason for that is, technically in the statute, is that it takes effect on the first day of the second calendar quarter after the adoption of the tax.
I knew it was something really clear like that.
So Scott, to maybe answer and maybe to make this a little more clear,
Yeah.
I think that your list of 7 here are fine. I don't think that there's something missing that should be there. Moving forward, if this is the final list of 7, moving forward, I don't think that prioritization is the proper term.
Okay.
I don't know that I care what order they're in.
It might
Listed-
better,
And finally, I think the last would be, if you end up with receipts less than this and you can't do some of these things, it's a decision for who's sitting here when that problem arises,
Right.
not necessarily one for us to predetermine.
rather than the word, the prioritized list, the priority list.
Okay.
That includes everything. So it's a priority list.
The way I looked at this list was, first of all, we have to see what passes.
Right.
And then we have to maybe periodically look at the amount it's gonna bring in, and not make we really can't make any kind of decision right now, then just like, it's proposed, period. But I wanna comment on number 7 about the gross receipts tax. And I've already had comments about that, and I think we may, if we leave it that way, we may have lost votes. Because there are a lot of home businesses, there's a lot of difference between maybe gross receipts of $7,000 and $1 million. And a friend of mine who has a home business and she has a business license says she pays $10. So if this passes, it'll cost her $40 every year. So I know we spent a lot of time on business license, a year or 2 ago? And I don't see this as being fair, because there have to be a lot of these small businesses, these home businesses that do crafts and that sort of thing. And she said, well, the way I saw it, she said I was in favor of it. She said, but I don't know if I can vote for it this way. So I think that's something we need to consider.
Yeah, and that is a point, and it's indeed a point that is exactly true. There are some in the gross receipts that are paying much less. I heard some people say, as we talked to them about it, well, they have to keep their books, and they're keeping them on a notebook, and just not having that burden of doing that, just paying a flat fee to them was worth it, that extra $30. Some people it won't be, and so it may be that but it will cost, would cost us more to eliminate it or make it less, one or the other or something like that. But you're right, there are some people that it will make it more for a small home business that's small gross receipts.
And I have a suggestion
But-
based on the questions that I've heard. It's a complicated issue, and I think it would be wise to make some kind of a brochure that answers the frequently asked questions about,
We will definitely do that.
factors to the 2 issues and how it's gonna be, pretty much, something similar to what the ballot says and the proposed way of that money being used. And also the fact that I think is important, this is a permanent tax. It's not like all our other taxes, which will sunset, you know, in a few years and we have to re-vote on it. So, you know, I think this is so important that we look at it periodically. And we can't bind future councils either. And so it's gonna be up to the council at different times to decide how this money is spent.
Absolutely.
And to get it passed now.
Right. Well, absolutely, Ed. You know, what we heard last time, and when it was tried to pass last time was, well, nobody said what we were gonna do. So, you know, we had to have that balance, but certainly, you know, down the road, you know, councils may have to change some of these things and just anticipate they'll otherwise, this is just a prioritization of what this council has said has been important in moving forward. But absolutely right, we will have brochures, we will, you know, educate, because it is a difficult, it's a difficult tax to explain. It is, people don't pay it. You know, people aren't paying, you know, they're paying the licensing fee now. So, I mean, that one's a little easier to explain. The other one, if they're not paying it, the use tax, they're not paying it now, the state use tax, they're not, you know, it's not likely they're gonna pay one now with the city. But it still is hard to explain. So we'll do we will have those, you know, any tool we can come up with, and we'll do our best to
My other question is on that item, on eliminate the gross receipts tax for million and under, right?
Yes.
How many businesses does that affect?
I believe it was, let me see if I can,
So we can maybe get that.
I can get you that information.
Yeah, I think that would
Kind
be
of
good.
spreadsheet fashion.
Yeah, that would be good to have.
Well,
And then,
I
and then
certainly
that last line doesn't quite read right. For businesses with less than $1 million annual gross receipts, their annual license fee would change to a flat $40. Their license fee would be nothing, right?
No.
Their tax, the gross receipts tax would be a flat.
The gross receipts tax is
Would
what
be a
they
flat
pay
40.
for their business license now. And so instead of it being,
Probably have a record of business licenses and the ones that are those small, perhaps home businesses.
Yeah.
That it would affect.
Yeah.
we have that number, I just don't have it. I just don't have it with me.
Yeah.
I'll,
No, I know you didn't, but,
it's, I think the total affected is like 500 and some, if I remember right. And, you know, there's like 100 and some, maybe up to 200
Yeah.
that are those small businesses that currently pay less than 40. So, you know, you would, look at the whole effect. But
Yeah.
we can get that for you and the effect
okay.
of both of those
That would be good.
categories.
That was a little, okay. You had another question?
I had a couple questions and suggestions, Scott.
Sure.
Messaging, and Eric can maybe get this to you, if he knows this one off the top of my head, because he's like an encyclopedia. When did the state of Missouri implement a use tax? And it's been decades, hasn't it? I think I would add, when Missouri had that tax in play, and in message in your trifold or PDF or whatever you're gonna do, that the obligations that we're discussing here are the same as those obligations that have been in place for X number of years with the state. This is not anything different than state thresholds. So I think people need to understand that. So
Yeah.
a lot of people don't understand it because they've never had to deal with it. Now, I would also maybe suggest that you talk to some of the larger material suppliers too, because just like this impacts Seymour's Drive and the ability to buy a car for potentially 3% less, it applies to people selling rock and cement. And we got some pretty significant employers.
Yeah.
So big project goes on, that's a for-profit project, can buy its concrete from an Illinois company out of state and save 3% right off the jump. And I don't think that's what people intend when they have these situations in place.
Yeah, and I think, John and I have talked about, that, and there may be some folks that are willing to talk about that.
It's important. I'm sure I'm missing somebody other than rock and concrete, but that's
Yeah.
a very important thing that I think people need to understand, is that parity issue.
Other questions, comments?
I'm in support of these priorities. I think they make a lot of sense. They're consistent with what we've been talking about for a while, certainly the top three councils spoken specifically on. And of course, we look to staff to bring recommendations as far as the timing. I think those are good points brought up by the mayor and Councilman Lozani, that, you know, we may say, well, we're not sure what we need in mental health professionals, so we're gonna put that off by a few months, but we need to move the fire training officer forward, or maybe either reverse, you know, and we may need to wait to see what revenues bring in. I know the county has seen some up and down from their actual revenues, so we may say, well, we're gonna delay until the first quarter or this, and the second quarter this. So I think that's absolutely what I'd expect, but I think overall, what we need at this time, and I think the needs predate the discussion of the use tax.
We will comment that this Friday's First Friday Coffee is a program with the mayors, Scott City and Jackson and myself. Jackson is voting also on these two issues. In fact, their language, and 2 votes, and their language is going to be identical to our language. And this would be an opportunity, the first opportunity. It is not the program, because we're really talking about what's going on in 16, but this is going on in 16, that both Dwayne and I would like to introduce a few comments as we're, along with economic development and everything else that's going on with the use tax to that crowd. I think it would be a good first opportunity to put that in the ear of that venue and that crowd. So we'll be looking forward, both of us, to do that on Friday. Not the whole program. We won't have brochure. It's going to be a real broad brush, but plan on doing that.
Very good.
Okay, we're down to new ordinances.
Yes. We have one new ordinance tonight. It's an ordinance amending the various sections of Chapter 23 related to stormwater management regulations. I don't know if y'all had any questions regarding that, or if Molly, if you had any, or Steve had, or Stan have any comments regarding it.
It's mainly just cleanup type items, making sure that we're consistent with other sections of the development code and state statute.
2 appointments tonight. I believe the first one for the Show Me Board of Managers. I believe you have a ballot in front of you.
I'm really
Name of Lincoln
I'm
Scott
really
has come
pleased
forward.
that I brought forth the name of Lincoln Scott. I think that is a great name to bring forth for the Show Me Center. I know we've kind of held off a little bit on that, and I think to me, we're ready to move on that, and I would
He's a real
support
community
Lincoln.
leader in
Yeah.
diversity and Southeast
And-
Health experience.
And city, yeah, great, that would be a great appointment, so we'll be recommending that.
Board of Examiners are all reappointments,
All
and all people that
reappointments.
are eligible for reappointment. So that's a good sign. They've been working hard to keep their nominations forward, and they're full, so that's good. Would draw your attention to the memos tonight. You do have the draft capital improvement program. This is the first draft, so there still are some work to be done. There's some edits that are still needed. We've been working on them, so but this is your chance to do the same, as well as point out anything that you think is missing or things that you'd like to reprioritize. Molly?
Mayor and council, I also would like to just bring your attention to the fact that Bruce will be sending an email checking for dates and times for a special study session on the CIP. The options probably look like Monday, January 25th, if we wanted to have a separate special study session meeting on that. Or like last year, we just started a regular meeting day early, like at 4 o'clock, and reviewed the CIP. So we'll send out a few different options and get your
Okay.
feedback at what works best for the most of you, and then get that scheduled as soon as possible.
Can we get a hard copy of that?
Yeah.
That's not a document that lends itself to these small screens.
We'll make you a copy. Put one in your mailbox tonight.
Good.
Anything else, Scott?
That completes it.
Anything, council?
I have a suggestion, Glenn. Ready? I was at a venue this weekend that will ultimately be competing against, hopefully, in the next 18 months. It was a sports venue in St. Louis. Everybody that was from Cape was bragging to everybody from St. Louis about how cool ours is gonna be. Maybe there was a little bit too much bravado. The Thunder, though, fell shy when the city councilman who was there went on the city's website in an effort to pull up a lot of visuals and show everybody how cool ours was gonna be, and I couldn't find it. So maybe it's time that we have a little page somewhere that just shows the watercolors, general layout, general facts, progression.
Just finished those, so they will be posted.
Perfect.
Yes.
I was, steam went out of the kettle. What's that?
I said thanks for the sage rule.
Thank you. And it just happened.
Yeah.
I just noticed it was about time. Part of the conversation. I know we've gotten far enough along, so. I did find it on Penzel's website though, so he's got it. So,
Does that save you?
timing was off though. It's like comedic humor. Timing is good too, and then
Okay.
crushed the victory. So.
Anything else, council? We do need to have this evening a closed session to discuss legal action, litigation, confidential communications with our legal counsel, property acquisition, personnel matters pursuant to revised statute 610-021, 1, 2, and 3. If I could have a motion.
So moved.
So moved by Snyder
Second?
and seconded by Bowen. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we will be adjourned and reconvene at 7 p.m.
Special assistant to the president for diversity and equity,
Yep.
did I get that right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Southeast Health, really
Great guy.
excellent instructor and administrator, and just great.
His wife's super too. He's a good guy.
Oh, where's your?
Don't forget to vote, early and often.
I got answers. Oh,
Horrific.